Michael Jordan, not a fan of the NBA's current load management strategy, calls out today's stars. Plus, Terry Rozier not getting paid by the NBA after all while he's away from the team, and some new details emerge. Not looking great for Scary Terry. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Make sure you subscribe right here to the channel. We've said it before, but about 70% of you not actually subscribed. Let's fix that. Hit that subscribe button. Great way to support the channel and keep us growing. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. Donnie, great to get stuff from Michael Jordan, but maybe not a surprise that he's not a big fan of players taking games off.
Oh no, I'm not. It's not a surprise. I mean, that's largely been the sentiment from anybody from his era that's talked about it. And frankly, I understand. Right? There's a lot of different reasons why I understand. But like you said, it's really cool to hear Mike talking because we haven't really had this before. So I'm really happy that they decided. It's unfortunate he's not going to be doing like actual coverage like they kind of said initially, implied initially. I guess I should say.
Right.
They kind of basically just did a sit down with him and they're going to cut it up all year long. Okay, fine. But it's cool, though, regardless, to hear what he has to say.
So here's what he said on NBC, which, by the way, NBA on NBC, it just feels right having the NBA back on NBC right now. But the NBA load management situation saying that players need to appear in at least 65 games to be eligible for regular season awards. And particularly this is important because right now it feels like so much. We've had great basketball, but so much of the league is hurt. Everybody is hurt right now. And we're just past the 1 week mark of the season. I mean, look at our Lakers. Literally half the team is out due to injury right now. But this is what Michael Jordan said. He said, well, it shouldn't be needed, first and foremost, talking about the 65 game rule. You know, I never wanted to miss a game because it was an opportunity to prove it was something that I felt like the fans are there that watch me play. I want to impress that guy way up top who probably worked his butt off to get a ticket or get money to buy the ticket. Then he goes on to say, and that's true for opposing fans too. He said, because I know he's probably yelling at me and I want to shut him up. He's calling me all kinds of names. I definitely want to shut him up. You have a duty that if they're waiting to see you as an entertainer, I want to show. So Jordan's idea, like we've heard Kobe used to say stuff like this about wanting to be there for the fans, about, you know, hey, if somebody pays money for a ticket, he wants to go out there and wants to show them. And especially he used to relish, as Jordan did, shutting up the home crowd, right, when he's on the road and making it that type of thing. But so I agree with Jordan on that front that, hey, that's a thing and that's great. That should be the mentality for all players. I don't think, though, that it should always be put on the players because it's not. In fact, most of the time, it is not the players' decision whether or not they play. So this idea that Jordan is putting out there that well, man, I mean, when I was playing, I wanted to play for that fan in my hometown that had to pay the money for the ticket, and I wanted to pay to shut up the hometown guy when I'm on the road and all of that. I don't think we can jump to the conclusion that today's players don't feel that way because most of the time, today's players, when they're being held out of games, it's not their choice.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that's a little bit lost in translation because as a fan, you're not thinking about that, especially when you don't think a player got any sort of like, especially when guys get injuries that you may, from the other end, perceive as, you know, nicky knack injuries or whatever those wording is like on that. But minor injuries that you don't think should warrant sitting out a game, right? And
you mean like a sprain? You mean like a sprained finger?
I'm not gonna go there, but yeah, like, and it's like it's hard because you're like, oh, I've seen so and so play through worse than that or whatever, and we get into this whole mindset.
He would have played,
and so it's hard from that perspective. But I do understand what he's saying, where it's like initially, they shouldn't be needed, right? And I agree with that. Like you shouldn't need to put a 65 game requirement on there to incentivize these guys to play so they can qualify for these end of season rewards. That shouldn't be a thing that's necessary. But like you said, also sometimes I'm sure it's the case where a guy's like, oh, I'm not really feeling it today. Do you mind holding me out or whatever? Or, oh, we're playing against this terrible team. This is an opportunity for me to sneak some rest. Then we won't play you. But more often than not, it's guys want to get out there, but they're held back by the medical staffs on teams. And I don't think that we really look at that or give that any sort of thought, because we just think of like the players themselves going out there. And the natural rebuttal to that is, well, can't these guys just tell them I'm going to play anyway? Screw that. I'm going to play anyway. Like, that's the initial response to that. And sometimes that's the case, but more often than not, they still won't let these guys play, right?
Well, and let's be real. Yeah. If it's Michael Jordan, and I know we try to forget this portion of his career, but let's say the Washington Wizards tried to tell Michael Jordan, you're not playing tonight. That's not going to go over well, right? He's going to have the power. Now, if it's somebody else, maybe that's not the case, but you're right. There are situations where you could say, well, but then the guy should just demand to play and should force his way out there onto the court and that type of thing. Sure. But do you want to fight that battle all year long? There's questions about that, especially if you're somebody specifically, let's face it, people are talking about Luka right now. And shouldn't Luka be out there? He played through the injury. Why is he not on the floor now? Well, it's also a leg contusion. Did a leg contusion lead to the calf thing that he had last year that kept him out? And the back and forth about Luka's being weak by not being out there or whatever. But in all of that, we're losing that it's not always the player's choice. And if you have had an injury before and the team is telling you, hey, we want you to sit out because you're at a higher risk of injury right now, you don't want to go through that again, missing all that time and the rehab and everything that goes along with it. So I get it why some players will say, okay, yeah, we're gonna lose the battle in order to win the war. I'm gonna sit out now so that I can play longer into the season. Now, that said, you can also dig back into NBA history and you see, how many minutes per game did Shaq used to average, and that wasn't even that long ago. And it makes the minutes per game that players are playing now look minuscule. And so players used to play full seasons. Players used to play a lot more. Guys didn't get as many substitutions. Guys didn't get load management, and yet guys still had full careers. The flip side of that, of course, being the game's different today. And
there's so many flips to that. Like player career length is also longer for a lot of these guys now. You see these guys going like LeBron, Chris Paul, going much deeper into their careers. Even like prior to Kobe's era, a lot of those guys, back in Jordan's era, were playing 10, 11, 12 years. And they felt like there maybe was something else there. These guys are not playing at the same pace remotely, not even the same. Maybe if you go back to the 80s, but the chunk in between, not even close, right? So like there's
the
just
pace this year isn't even the same as last year's.
Yeah,
the pace this year makes last year look like it was snails out there. They are flying up and down the floor this year.
The rebuttal is also like, I saw that we also have better sports medicine. We also have a lot of different things like that, but these guys are still dropping like flies, right? So it's just, I don't know. It's a very different game in so many different ways, man.
You're moving more. There's more explosive movements. You're covering way more ground. The speed. You watch a game from 30 years ago. Dribble the ball down the floor, hit the wing throws it into the post. 4 guys stand around, guy in the post makes the move, and then rebound, go back to the other side, do the whole thing all over again. Offense and defense, they're moving so much more out there on the court now than they ever were, and I think that increases wear and tear and all of that. The bottom line with all of this, Donnie, is this is a very deep conversation with a lot of things, a lot of layers to this. And I think just landing on a point of today's players are weak because we didn't need a 65 games played mandate back in my day is missing a lot of context from, again, what is a very deep, very nuanced, very important conversation to be having around the NBA. Could it be a little bit of players today are just soft? Sure, that could definitely be a piece to this. We can go back to how much they're playing AAU when they're growing up. Huge conversation here with all these different layers to it. But just landing on, because so many people want to just say, oh, players today are soft. I think that's a mistake to just land at that one place and say, this is the explanation for everything. It's a much broader conversation than that.
You could frankly sit down for an hour and bring up so many different things on this topic. And so, yeah, I don't know that it's fair to boil it down to a singular focus, but ultimately I do like the idea, the mindset that, I wanted to shut up these fans.
Yes.
I wanted to make that fan that spent so much money feel good about the tickets. Like it really sucks from a fan perspective when you save up money, especially for like your whole family. You make this trip. It could be a pretty far trip. Maybe you got to fly somewhere. You make this trip and you find out last minute the player's not playing.
Yep.
That's terrible, right? Like, and if it's not, again, something that's like a major injury, maybe it's a ticky-tacky, there's the term, injury. Yeah.
Nitpick, ticky-tack.
Yes. Something is
you're right there.
Something you can potentially perceive as insignificant anyway, because we don't know these guys' bodies or what they're, whatever, right? Then that really sucks. And so I do completely empathize and agree with that specific point on this topic, though. But yeah, you could sit down for quite a while and talk about so many different things, whether it's from the differences in the way the game's played now versus back in Jordan's day, all the different reasons. But lastly, I just want to say, it's not that players are soft. That's not the point I'm making, but are some of these older guys just cut from a different cloth is what it is. Maybe that's what it is in terms of like just their overall mindset. Maybe these guys nowadays come up with so much more handed to them in terms of like opportunity, all this stuff. That's a whole other nuanced conversation. I
could start complaining on stuff for that. Start talking about, the drink from the hose generation and all that kind of stuff. And have we lost some of that toughness now? You talk to kids today, you ask them to even try to find something in a book and they can't do it because everything is at their fingertips all the time. They don't have to work for any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, you know what? But I also think it's the job of every generation to complain about how easy the generations that come after them have it. But
man, that's probably true.
So, okay, we need to talk about Terry Rozier though, because yikes, this is no bueno. It's not looking good. We're going to get into that in 1 minute. Don't go anywhere, everybody. Ever hear the Sleeper app? Here's a little secret. It's more than just a platform for season-long fantasy leagues. This year, millions of users enjoyed playing fantasy sports on Sleeper, but the app offers so much more. Live stats, real-time updates, and visualizations on all stats. A news feed, this is so important for me. You can get lightning-fast updates on your favorite players and teams. A real-time chat to allow you to engage with other users about individual plays and performances during the NFL and NBA seasons. So download the #1 sports app today. Experience it for yourself. When you use promo code Bulletin, you get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states. Check out Sleeper today. And by the way, they do have a phenomenal promo going on right now as well. Free $20 entry. Go check that out. No deposit required. $20 entry for free. Go check them out. Use the link in the description down below, and that promo code is Bulletin. All right, let's take a look at this. Shams Charania reporting today, in contrary to what we had heard 4 or 5 days ago, that Terry Rozier and Chauncey Billups would get paid while they are away for their teams under FBI investigation. Shams Charania says no. Says they will not be paid. Instead, their paychecks will be withheld and placed in escrow. I would assume if they're cleared of guilt here, they will then get that money. But if the FBI cases don't go their way, that money may not find its way. We'll see. I'm sure the players' union will have something to say about it, but they're not actually sitting at home and still getting paid right now by the NBA, and that could be part of the problem that we're going to get into here with Terry Rozier, because we got more information on a tax situation that maybe explains, again, we're connecting dots here, but explains some motivation for him to get involved in what he allegedly got involved in. And specifically with him, it was saying his foot was hurt as a way to come out of a game when he let everybody know he was going to leave a game early. So they bet his unders, and that created profits for them, which obviously is a cardinal sin in the NBA. But according to ESPN, Terry Rozier had an $8.2 million federal income tax lien in November of 2023. And that would be just months after he allegedly provided non-public information about his plans to leave a March 2023 game early. So again, this doesn't necessarily, this isn't the smoking gun. This isn't the see, he's guilty, but he was having financial problems. Clearly, does that then give him more incentive to do something like what he is, alleged to have done? It just adds, I think, to this whole conversation around Rozier and why a player could get involved in something like this.
Yeah, for sure. Really quick, any chance that they asked Jordan about this type of stuff? Are we gonna get like a soundbite from Jordan on this type of stuff at some point?
I hope so.
That could be.
It'd be. I mean, Jordan, known as a gambler, obviously the legends about what his baseball sabbatical really was, and all that.
There's a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, he would be an interesting guy to ask about. Hey, what is your take on this whole situation? I'd imagine he would have an interesting viewpoint on all this.
Yeah, for sure. I just was thinking about that because we just segued from. This does not look particularly great. It speaks to potential motive for why he would be doing this, because he is already having financial issues. And yeah, he makes a lot of money, right? He's made a lot of money in his NBA career, but that doesn't mean anything if you surround yourself with the wrong people, if you don't manage that money, if you just blow it on whatever. And so ultimately, he clearly spent beyond his means and was not even able to take care of taxes. He's got a lien going on. And so he probably was like, I'm looking at this like, I need more money. And he's in a situation where this turns into, it looks like anyway, it turns into this sports betting stuff. But firstly, I've got to say on this, the funds being frozen, or the money being escrow, his funds are probably also frozen. All his assets are probably also frozen. That's typically what also comes with this. So that really sucks for your family, right? You put your family in a really tough situation, and they also are pretty strict on that type of stuff. If you like bought something and put it in someone else's name, they're gonna freeze that asset too, and all this stuff. You put your family in a really tight spot with all of this stuff. So I have empathy for those people as well, just kind of on the sidelines while this investigation is ongoing. And then otherwise with like Terry, the problem with this is that typically when the feds get involved, they already know what's going on, man. Like they've already they may already have a smoking gun. They will typically sit back. Even if it takes them 5-10 years, they will sit back for 5 or 10 years and build and build and build until they present this case to you. And when they do that, it's typically already too late. So the fact that we're here, the fact that we talked about how the NBA investigated and didn't find anything supposedly, and that doesn't look great. But the fact we're here a couple years later afterwards, and we've been seeing more of these, Jonte Porter, there's probably other guys. We have Beasley being investigated, whatever that, we're seeing more of these. I can't imagine this looks great for Rozier. I'm not sure how he gets out of this personally.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, this is just because he had a lien doesn't necessarily mean that he's guilty, right? But
no, that just means that he was having money problems. That's
but here's the thing. Like when we're talking about, he was having money problems. I have a hard time sympathizing with he's having money problems. He's $1 million career.
Yeah, it's hard to sympathize with somebody making so much money, man.
160 million.
It's hard,
now,
man.
Is that money actually, is it 160 million he has in his pocket? No. Taxes are high. He's paying an agent fee, all that sort of stuff. But man, like that's a lot of money to suddenly be in a spot where you can't pay your taxes, right? Like you got to make a lot of mistakes. And unfortunately, that's not all that uncommon of a story with professional athletes. We do see this frequently, and that's why the NBA has a pension system and all that to try to help these guys after their careers, because once that money's not coming in anymore, sometimes that can be a challenge for players and former players. So I do think that financial education is a very, very important thing, both obviously in professional sports, but just in this country in general. Financial education is incredibly important. We don't do enough of it. As a former teacher, I can tell you we don't do enough financial education with students. And there needs to be more of it so they truly understand what it is that they're getting into when we're talking about student loans, or we're talking about interest rates, compounding, all these sorts of things. We've got to do a better job with that. But that said, that kind of money also buys you a lot of options. It gives you the ability to get whatever kind of advice you want. You can get whatever kind of financial planner you want. And if you're making the wrong decision, if you're attaching yourself to the wrong people that are using that money in the wrong ways, it can go fast. And I don't know exactly what Terry Rozier's situation is, but again, man, you got 160 million and you get yourself into financial problems, or you've made that much over the course of your career and you get yourself into financial problems. There's no There's no reason for that. There's no excuse for that.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. It's like you're saying, it's real hard to feel sympathy from this side for somebody that's made $160 million. Like that's just so much money. And it does give you the opportunity to surround yourself with better people, get better advice, and not wind up where he seems to be at overall. But yeah, one wrong turn and maybe multiple wrong turns, and he's now here. So
and it's not just lottery winners,
it's
right?
anybody.
What the percentage of them that go broke, right? I mean, it happens. It happens to people. Lifestyle creep is a very real thing, even when you're into the millions of dollars. It happens as you earn more money, you start spending more, and it's what can happen if you're not careful. But man, that's
I mean, it could happen to us. Like we're not making anywhere near that much money. If you
100%,
if you spending too much money and you're not taking care of your taxes, all that stuff, man, it adds up for sure. And you know, you were talking about just financial education as someone that was coming out of like high school, like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I can tell you that when I stepped into the real world and was, had all that stuff on my plate and was making money, but also was losing money. I was like, how does this even work? What am I supposed to do? Because it was all
managing
foreign.
a budget. Yep.
Yeah, like it's all foreign. They don't teach you anything about that stuff growing up. And it's really unfortunate. And so you kind of have to learn that stuff on the fly. You've got to seek out that stuff. But if you don't, you could just build bad habits and spiral from there. And so maybe Terry was in a situation like that. And maybe he also had a situation where he made too much money too quickly and he was surrounded by the wrong people and just kept making these bad decisions. And ultimately, maybe was presented with the opportunity to make some side money. And all it took was him saying, I don't want to play today, or I'm going to leave early. Right. So
yeah.
I think you can explain away a lot of this stuff in terms of like that stuff, but there's no excuse. There's no excuse at all.
Right. And I think that's where people need to understand. You need to know what you don't know. You know what I mean? And some people don't. They don't even know what it is they don't know. But you need to have that. And this is why growth mindset is so important. You need to have a sense of, I don't know these things. I know there's this whole financial world out there that I don't have an understanding of. Where can I get educated about these things? How can I find this stuff out? And when you've got that kind of money, you have the ability to go get educated on those things. Now, you also have a lot of people, though, that will try to take advantage of you and try to. So I'm not saying it's easy, because there are people that will try to take advantage of you, will try to take that money away from you, will do everything they can. And if you happen to listen to the wrong one, then you can get yourself into trouble, certainly. And again, it's way too common of a story. But that's a lot of money for him to get into, for him to find himself in tax trouble. And if that was a contributing factor to his decision to, again, allegedly come out of a game early in order to help his under bets hit, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. It's a tragic situation, really, when you look at it from that perspective, because there's no reason why he ever should have been in a situation where money was a reason why he was doing anything.
Yeah, and there was reports saying this is just the tip of the iceberg, man. We're going to get more and more of these as we go on. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
Adam Silver's going to have to drop the hammer. If this all turns out to be true and accurate, he's going to have to drop the hammer. Going to have to try to set the precedent for the future. All right, everybody, give us your thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.